Good morning, day 169. I've been a little bit later today. Trying to do all this while being on vacation, which is it. I could parlay that into today's topic. A stranger in a strange land. So the chapters in Jeremiah are long, like they are pages long. I'm like, oh, I only have to read 2 chapters today. Oh, but that's 5 pages. And that's a lot in the Bible. And then to try to pull like, 10, 20 minute thread out of that applicable to like modern day life. Like, what do we do with this? And we're going to kind of continue on from yesterday, which was this whole notion of voluntarily entering into exile, that letting go of something and going voluntarily into an exile is actually, like when we talk about brain science and habit change, is part of the path that you need to go on. And what you want is on the other side of that exile and being a stranger in a strange land. That's what we're going to talk about today. Like, they continue on with this coming voluntary, those who are going to go to Babylon voluntarily in order to receive the future goodness. And even while they're strangers in a strange land doing this, this is actually where they're going to get protection and provision from God. Those who refuse to do this are actually going to be annihilated. I think there's a language lesson in here too. The word isle, or the letters I-L-E, are in a lot of words here. Exile, annihilate, reconcile. Anyway, it might have to be a word study for another day. But there's a lot of brain science in here. When we look conceptually at this story, and then we look at our lives, individuals, and when we have been practicing and living in a certain way, in a certain land, and then we decide, you know what, this isn't so good for me. We need to wipe the slate clean and make a change in an area, or maybe it's multiple areas. And our brain, does not like change. We talk about that all the time. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. It's hard. That's when the higher brain has to kick in, partner with God, your creator, a higher purpose, to be able to live as a stranger in a strange land voluntarily. We don't like that. It's like, it feels strange. It's uncomfortable. No, every part of us will resist it. It will want to stay where it knows what to do, how to behave, even when it's not good for us. So when we enter into this kind of contract with ourselves and part of ourselves, we've got to know what's coming, or we won't be able to stay there, or we won't behave right in the strange land, and therefore we can undermine our success. So when you're I was going to call this maybe even the land of in between, or it's just going to feel weird. And you're not going to, there will be days when you're like, no. Like even today for me, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, who's watching this? Who is this for? Like, do you really have to get up and do this every day? And then I've made this agreement with myself. Nope. Yep. We are doing it. We are sticking with the plan, because good things are happening overall as a result of making this change, this discipline change with myself, and consistently showing up and making friends with it, and then welcoming it into my life, into my land. But it feels strange for other people. It still feels strange to me, like it's not solidified yet. And meanwhile, what's happening back in the land that's going to be annihilated. Like, there's a lot of cleanup that has to happen over there. It takes time. You've got to feel the two separate selves. The one that's like, no, come back. Like, no, we need to stay over here and do it this way. You might even have people in your life that are not so happy with your changes. And you're going to have to learn how to stay over in this other place and sticking with it. In Jeremiah chapter 29, in verses 4 through 8, there's a reference, and this has showed up actually a few times in the Old Testament so far, where they're like, yep, you're going to go over here to Babylon, but I want you to be nice. I want you to, where if you help this land prosper, you will prosper as a result. So don't go over there and be rude. Don't go over there and isolate yourself and be mad about it and cloister it. You know, you've got to go over there and integrate yourself into this new way. The new, but you've got to be careful to not completely take on their characteristics, like put guardrails up, but I want you to settle in. Act like you really are going to be here for a while. You're going to live here. You're going to plant. You're going to eat what you plant. You're going to build houses. You're really going to do life over here for a while. So get comfortable. But you need to stay connected to me. Remember that you're my people, and you need to stick together. So in the people that study brain science and positive psychology and habit change, you'll hear them all say, like, you can't do this on your own. It's going to feel weird and feel strange. You've got to put in enough of a support system that you can settle in and stay in this land, this what will feel like a strange land, but you've got to pretend like it's home for a while. And you've got to get comfortable there while you're making changes. You've got to have community. You've got to do as much normal life as you can while your old self, the old land, is getting cleaned out and ready for you to return to reintegrate yourself. But you're going to feel like two separate selves, two different lands, one identity, and you've got to go over here and live for a while and do normal life while this newness gets integrated into you and this new way of being, before you can go back to the old land and everything can be reconciled and reintegrated as one. I hope this is making sense. This is kind of some difficult stuff. I'm glowing. I think all this humidity is good for your skin overall. Anyway. I digress. So it really is some like heady stuff, and it's good to kind of learn the whole habit change cycle. And for some of us, you might even have a habit that is also mixed in with an addiction. And that is even more like you've really got to surround yourself with community and with like-minded people that want to make this same change, especially when we live in a world that celebrates everything now. You can't go to a baby shower without having mommy water and mimosas, and men can't be real men without a beer in their hand everywhere they go. And, you know, drugs now, you know, marijuana's legalized everywhere. Like, it's a strange time to be alive where so much about being altered is celebrated and expected. So if that's one of the areas, and then if you've gotten off track with your relationship with food, and of course you have to eat, that's a really hard one. And part of it is accepting that you need to go over here and voluntarily put yourself into exile and still learn how to live in normal society while still maintaining this change that you want to make, this identity shift. And it takes a while. These folks are going to be in Babylon for 70 years. Now, that doesn't translate to 70 literal years for us, but it takes a long time. And it's not the same for everybody. But you'll know when your cycle has been completed. But in general, for it to really be a permanent, like, a place where you can go back to your old self and reintegrate, and now it's just one, it takes a long time and a lot of practice. And you've even got to put some new ways of living in place, guardrails that will keep you reminding yourself, oh yeah, I'm this way. Even when you're at a buffet table where all the things are flowing, or if you're now a fit person who now has to go to the beach where everybody's expected to, not exercise, do their exercise program for the week. And maybe that's okay for them, but not for you, because that old self is still there. And when you allow that old self to sort of be re-engaged, the new self can get kicked out real quick. And then it's hard to get that new self back. Because what happens with brain, what we know now about brain science is you can make changes. You really can change. But the old ways of being, our brains are so powerful. The old ways of being are always there. Just like Jerusalem, they can't get completely rid of it. Jerusalem's there, but we really do have to leave for a while, let those pathways get old and covered up and deactivated, but they're still there. They're still there. And so that's why even when we're over here learning to be this new way, and we are this new way, we've got to know that those old ways aren't gone. They're just kind of deactivated, decommissioned. But all it takes is like a very short time period. And it's like, oh, there we are. Here we are back again. Yes, we like. And there's part of you that really enjoyed whatever it is you were doing before. You knew how to do it. It was a comfort zone. Whatever, the reasons are, they're there. And so in order to stay firm in our new identity and our new way of being, we've got to even return to the land. When we reintegrate ourselves, we've got to have some new things that come back with us to the old land. New habits got to follow with us, and new guardrails that keep the new people and in the old land that makes a whole new land. I know, it's wild. But when you get it, you get it. And sometimes you actually have to go through it to get it. And that's where you have to be willing to be a stranger in a strange land. It's going to feel weird. And you're going to resist it. So the willingness, why you're doing it, all of those have to be so strong that even on the days you wake up and you don't have the support that you need from other people, even yourself is like, what are we doing? They're crazy. That you stick with it. So I hope this is making sense. And for those of us, and this is me included, where I've got like about 5 different big things I want to change about who I am fundamentally and the way I want to live my life for the rest of my life. But I've got 30 years of practicing another way. Some of those ways even actually back to early childhood, so nearly 50 years. I got 50 years of practicing being another way. It's going to take me just a minute to get over here. And now that I know and I understand and respect the power of my brain, I'm slowly, patiently one foot in front of the other. It's going to feel like I'm in exile. I'll reintegrate one aspect of myself and then have it voluntarily go back into another land of exile where I'm going to feel like a stranger in a strange land while I learn how to be that way before I can reintegrate that. So it's like for some of us, it's many seasons of exile, which I think that can even be demonstrated metaphorically in the Bible. So anyway, I have chit-chatted long enough. This is kind of high level, big stuff. So we'll see how this comes out in writing. But if you're struggling and you keep, maybe you're trying to make a big change in your life, but you're like, I can't stick. You're not allowing yourself to stay as a stranger in a strange land long enough. That's probably part of the issue. You're probably going, I got it. I learned what I need to learn. I got it. I can go back to normal life, the old land, and then the old ways are getting reactivated because you haven't solidified the new identity enough. And the old city, the old Jerusalem, not enough clearing has taken place. You still got some remnants there that are going to be like, oh, hey, she's back. The party's back on. So that could be it. Just that, it's just patience, trusting the process, and knowing it might take a long time. It might take a year for you. It might take 6 months. It might take 2 years. It takes however long it takes. We're all different. So anyway, I'm going to sign off, and you have a great Sunday wherever you are, or whatever day of the week it is, whatever time it is. Go rise and shine.